When the lights go out, whispers from the dark, disturbing mystery story. The power went out again. It was midnight when the whole town of Hollow Creek went dark. Every house, every streetlight, even the hum of the electric fences faded into silence. The only sound left was the wind pushing softly through the trees, and something else, something faint. Sarah Miller pressed her ear against her bedroom window, her breath fogging up the glass. It was there again, whispers, faint and broken, like voices carried through an old radio. She couldn't tell what they were saying, but one thing was clear: they were coming from the end of the road. Her younger brother, Tom, was standing by the door holding a flashlight, his hands shaking. "It's them again," he whispered. "The ones who talk when the lights go out." Before Sarah could answer, the flashlight began to flicker. The beam danced across the living room wall, landing on the old family photo. Then the battery died. Total darkness. And in that darkness, just outside their window, they heard it. Someone whispering Sarah's name. Then came 3 slow knocks on the glass. Sarah froze, staring at the outline of a figure just beyond the curtain. It wasn't moving, but she could hear it breathing, steady and low. Tom grabbed her arm, pulling her backward toward the hallway. But before they could reach the stairs, the sound of a cassette tape started playing somewhere inside the house. A soft click. Then faint voices crying. The same whispers they had heard outside. And then something began walking up the stairs. It all began 2 weeks earlier, before any of this happened. Hollow Creek was a quiet little town tucked between hills and thick woods. The kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, and nothing strange ever really happened. But that changed the night the first blackout hit. People thought it was just bad weather at first. A storm had rolled through that evening. Sarah nodded slowly. The sound seemed to be coming from outside, near the front porch. She turned the recorder up. The whisper grew louder, clearer. It was saying something that made her blood run cold. It was her name. The whisper repeated it again and again, as if calling her closer. Then another voice joined in, softer, sadder crying. Sarah grabbed Tom's hand and backed away from the door. The crying turned into a faint hum, like someone playing a song she half remembered. When the power finally came back on, their father ran outside. Nothing. No footprints. No signs of anyone there. But the tape Sarah recorded had captured everything: the whispers, the crying, and something else neither of them noticed before. A man's voice, deep, quiet, and distant, saying, "You shouldn't have listened." After that night, things got worse. The blackouts spread beyond their street. People started hearing voices even when the lights were still on. Dogs barked at empty air. The sheriff's office was flooded with calls from terrified residents. And then came the night that changed everything. It was late Friday. The Millers had just finished dinner when the TV flickered and went black. The power cut off again, but this time, the whole town lost connection at once. Even the phones died. Sarah's dad tried to check the fuse box, but something stopped him. From outside, across the street, came a scream. Sarah ran to a window and saw lights flashing from other houses, flashlights waving, people shouting. But all she could hear were the whispers again, dozens of them, overlapping, circling the neighborhood like a storm. Tom pointed toward the road. "Sarah," he whispered, trembling. "Someone standing under the streetlight." She looked out and saw a tall, thin figure staring straight at their house. The streetlight flickered once, then went out completely. The figure— "You fell," she said quickly, trying to help him up. But as she looked around, something caught her eye. There, behind the generator, was a small wooden box covered in dust. It looked too old to belong there. The box had a strange symbol carved into the lid. A circle made of thin lines, crossed through the middle. "What's that?" Tom whispered from behind her. Henry frowned. "That wasn't here before." He picked it up carefully and opened it. Inside were 3 cassette tapes, each one labeled in the same handwriting they'd seen before. "When the lights go out." Sarah felt her stomach twist. "Dad, why are those here?" Henry stared at them for a long moment before speaking. "I don't know, but someone put them here on purpose." Suddenly, the generator coughed and died again. The light snapped off. They were back in darkness. That's when the voices started quiet at first, then rising like a crowd whispering all at once. Words too faint to understand, circling them in the dark. Sarah reached for a flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. The air grew colder. "Tom, stay close," she whispered, pulling him near. Henry reached out, feeling along the wall for the stairs. "We're getting out of here," he said firmly. "Now." As they climbed the steps, Sarah turned back one last time, and there, in the faint glow of lightning through the basement window, she saw it. A tall figure standing behind the shelves, its head tilted to one side, motionless, watching them go. She didn't say a word. She just pushed Tom up the stairs faster until they reached the hallway again. When they burst into the living room, the power suddenly came back. The lights blazed alive, the TV flickered, and the radio snapped on mid-sentence. Sarah turned, expecting to see her father behind her, but he wasn't there. "Dad!" she called out. "Silence!" She ran back to the basement door, but it was shut tight. She twisted the handle, it wouldn't move. The door felt ice cold. From the other side came 3 slow knocks. Tom began to cry softly. "Sarah, he's still down there." Sarah pressed her ear to the door. "Dad!" No answer, only the faint sound of cassette clicking inside a player, and then a familiar whisper. Her name. The next morning, the police came. The house was quiet, the power steady, and the basement door wide open again. But Henry Miller was gone. Sheriff Cooper and 2 deputies searched the entire area of the woods, the road, even the riverbank. Nothing. It was like he had vanished into thin air. The only thing they found was an old tape recorder sitting on the basement floor, still spinning with static. Sarah tried to tell them what she saw the figure, the whispers, the tapes, but they didn't believe her. "You've been under a lot of stress." The flashlight lay on the table. Sarah reached for it, hand trembling, and flicked it on. For a split second, the beam caught something at the end of the hall, a figure standing perfectly still, facing the wrong direction, head tilted slightly to one side. Then the light went out again. Tom gasped. "It saw us." Sarah grabbed his arm. "We need to get out. Now." They crawled toward the kitchen, using the moonlight slipping through the window to guide them. The whispers followed, louder and clearer, like someone walking just behind them. "Don't run," one voice hissed. "It's too dark out there." Sarah ignored it and yanked the back door open. The night air rushed in, cold and wet. The town was completely black, no streetlights, no sound, just pitch darkness stretching down Hollow Creek Road. They ran, barefoot across the gravel, the wind cutting at their faces. Somewhere behind them, the door slammed shut on its own. "Where are we going?" Tom cried. "The sheriff's office," Sarah said between breaths. "We just have to make it down the hill." Halfway there, a sound stopped in a familiar hum, like a radio tuning between stations. Sarah turned toward the woods. There, glowing faintly through the trees, was light. It flickered like an old bulb, warm and yellow. "Someone's there," Tom said. Sarah hesitated. It could be help, or it could be something else. But before she could decide, a voice called out from the woods. "Sarah!" It was her father's voice. Her breath caught in her throat. "Dad!" Tom tugged her arm. "Don't. That's not him." But she had already stepped forward. The voice called again, softer this time. "Sarah, come home." She took another step, her feet crunching on the wet leaves. The light grew brighter between the trees, revealing a small cabin she hadn't seen before. It looked abandoned, the roof sagging, the door half open. From inside came the soft sound of a tape turning. Sarah pushed the door open slowly. The room was filled with the smell of dust and metal. On the floor sat an old table with a tape recorder and dozens of cassette tapes spread out, each one labeled with different names. Linda Hart, Michael Donnelly, Henry Miller, her father's name. She moved closer, her hands shaking. The tape player was still running, the reel spinning slowly. She pressed stop. The whispering stopped instantly. The silence was so sudden it hurt her ears. Then, from behind her, the floorboards creaked. Sarah spun around. The figure from the house was standing in the doorway, tall, pale, and motionless. It leaned its head to the side and in a low voice said, You shouldn't have turned it off. The lights inside the cabin exploded, every bulb popping at